image. I have the screen width, the screen height, so those are just passed so that I can know, the maximums, the left and the right of how far it can go. And also, I just wanted to know the top of the twit house. Let's actually take a look at the game once more. So we have the top of the house here, and I just want to know the top of the house so I can put the spaceship right above that. Okay? So those are the 4 values I figured the app would need to start it off, to initialize it. And so what I do with those values is I initialize the velocity with that static variable I declared at the top. Just initialize the moving booleans to false. And then now for the left maximum. So it can go all the way to the very first pixel on the screen, all the way to the left, plus 50 pixels. The reason I did that is so it can go just a little bit off the screen, so in case an alien decides to run off to the side of the screen, you can still kind of shoot them. And when you play the game, when you see the application finally come out, you'll see how that works. And then the right maximum, I take the actual screen width and I add 50 pixels again so that the spaceship doesn't move too far off the screen, all the way to the right. After that, I create my rectangle and initialize that. In that rectangle, it's going to hold all 4 points of the spaceship where it is on screen. And the place I start it is I start it right in the center of the screen, right above the twit house. So these values here, I'm not going to go through them. They just basically initialize the left, the top, the right, and the bottom to a nice rectangle that fits right above the house. Okay? And you can take a look at that in the code and see exactly what I did there to position all those coordinates. I have all my regular getters and setters so that I can grab values from this class because you always want to declare things as private. It's just a best practice, and it just kind of makes your app more concise and make sure you're not using methods where you shouldn't be using them. So we have those getters and setters so we can grab these actual values for these variables. After that, we have these 2 important methods, which is move right and move left. Okay? So we'll start off with move right here. And it's basically the same as move left, and it gets 1 parameter when it starts, and that's the last update. So basically, that's just the amount of milliseconds between the last time the screen was updated and the most current time. So it could be something, let's say maybe 100 milliseconds, which is actually way too long for an update to happen between screens. But let's say it's 100 milliseconds. It's going to require that so I can actually set the velocity, how much further across the screen it actually has to move. So all I'm doing is I'm changing the values of that rectangle that's holding my spaceship, and I'm just changing them to a little bit more to the right. And so I take that velocity, you can see right here, and I multiply it by the last update. So if the last update was 100 milliseconds ago, it's going to take that 0.3 of the velocity, and that's going to be 30 pixels. It has to move to the right. That's a pretty big jump, as I said. The spaceship would never move 30 pixels at a time. So when you're moving stuff across the screen, we're actually dealing with pixels and how far you want to move it. So keep that in mind. Our move left, same thing, except the value we're going to be changing will be the left-hand side of the rectangle. So that's about it for the spaceship class. And I took a lot of time with it, but that's because I want to just make sure we're clear on how to create these custom classes, because all the other classes like the alien, the special, what we call the bomb, very simple name, all those classes are going to be very similar when we look through them. So let's go, now that we've finished our spaceship. Okay? And you should always create all these classes before you start. You want to have these tools ready so that once you actually start drawing stuff, all these classes are ready. And feel free to just copy this class and change some of the values and create your own little mini game. We open source this stuff for a reason, right?
So it doesn't have to be a spaceship. You don't have to be shooting aliens. It can be a little animation that you're moving across, do like a pitfall type game where you have to run and jump and do things. So you have to look at it as you're building, you're coding right now the building blocks that you're going to use throughout the game. So you really have to break down and brainstorm what elements you're going to use, what do you need all the buttons to do, what do you need each element to do, and that'll give you a better idea when you start breaking that down. You'll become a lot less confused. You know, a lot of this stuff I wouldn't know where to get, but you're saying, you know, if you break it down per element, it's everything that you need to do.
It's because objects, they imitate real life things, right? You know, definition of an object meaning, you know, a real world element or abstract concept, right?
They'll have colors and weights and
you know,
size.
So when you think about the game, the spaceship is an actual thing, right? It's got to store its own values and its data. So we need a whole class to deal with that and to actually control that spaceship. So let's take a look at Invader's avatar real quick. This is one of the aliens, for example. The ways that this differs from the spaceship has some of the very similar values as the spaceship. Except that when we first create an instance of the Invader's avatar, we actually need to feed it two random points across the top of the screen. You'll see when we actually go to draw it, we're going to randomize where the aliens appear using a really nice class called random. It just gives you a random integer, and it allows us to place this Invader's avatar somewhere across the top of the screen, and then it starts falling from there. So that's how that one differs. We also have this kind of randomized method here of that chooses a different alien skin. So you'll see there's multiple colors for the aliens. What are the colors again for this? What did you do, Greg?
Which one?
We got blue ones, we got green aliens.
Yeah.
Right?
And then
so we want to randomize those skins. So that's what I did in this class here. Let's blow this up.
And I could have had different aliens, different skins.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get it done, really wanted to get it working where it randomized and the avatars fit nicely within, you know, whatever. But, you know, the fact that we're pulling in external data, you know, to have these avatars, are you going to show kind of how the avatars get put in?
Yeah, I will show that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's going to be in the actual drawing part. We'll talk about how I get the actual avatars from TwitHouse and from Twitter itself.
Cool.
But just if you guys are curious how to create a randomized, you know, array of, or just, you know, how to randomize these different kind of masks, you can see I created a new instance of this random here. So random, as I said, allows us to generate a random integer. And I plug that into a switch statement. I hope you're familiar with a switch statement, just being a statement that kind of tests different cases. So I find out whether, you know, the random value was 0, 1, or 2. And that just applies, you know, one of the masks based on what that random integer was. So that's just how I did that there with a simple random integer and a switch statement. After that, we kind of just do some stuff where I apply you can take a closer look at this later on, but basically I have to apply the avatar first, the actual bitmap for the avatar, then I have to stick the skin on top of that, the alien skin. So there's actually 2 layers to this image. And I used kind of my own separate canvas within here. I don't really want to go into how I exactly did that, how I put 2 layers of an image together. You can find a lot of code for on the internet or just copy what I've done here. But I used a whole separate canvas to create that new bitmap with layers. After that, getters and setters. The avatar class does have an alpha setting because when you shoot an avatar, it starts to slowly fade away. And that's about it.
You could have it explode.
Yeah, you could have explosions.
Fireworks.
We didn't get too involved with this, right?
Gore, blood.
Well, it's not the simplest game in the world. We didn't want to go too crazy and spend too much time out because, you know, the main functionality is Twitter.
But we put a kill count and we added some numbers, so maybe we can
there's
take
different
that.
levels, there's difficulties. I'll get into that here. And then there's some other classes you can take a look at. We have the bomb. The bomb is a special little kind of power-up. And then I also have a class for the actual game controls. That being that there's 3 game controls, actually 4 if you consider the bomb button, which is the power-up. You have a left button, you have a fire button, a right button, and if you get the power-up, you can have a bomb button as well. So you can obviously understand what they do. And I just kind of put all the methods for that in a nice organized class called Invaders Game Controls. So you can take a look at that to understand how it works. Let's start off with the actual activity. We all know the activity is the basis of how an Android app displays a user interface. So let's see here. So invaders game activity, obviously we extend the activity class, and this is a very, very small activity, all right? And that's because none of the drawing is actually done here. We save all that for our canvas class. So you can see here I initialize the back button so you can exit the game. I initialize the game holder, remember that relative layout from the XML file? That's our holder for the game. And I also initialize a new instance of invaders game canvas view. That's the actual class we're going to be taking a look at in a few seconds. That actually deals with all the drawing, with the timings of everything, when things happen. That's going to be the fun part, where we actually see things happen. That's all here, that's it. Also, good point out, good little tip here. You can see I've extended the onDestroy method. Which you don't have to do. The onDestroy method being the last method that gets called when your activity gets destroyed and it's not displayed to the user anymore. I have this thing, I call this method here .endGame. The reason I call that is you want to make sure that your game actually stops, because even though you think your activity is destroyed, that game is still running. Yeah. Believe it or not, that game's going to keep running. And you notice it really quick. If I didn't call this and I exit the activity, you're going to notice the game keeps playing, and if you lose, a toast message will actually pop up saying, hey, you lost the game. You're like, what are you talking about? I'm not even playing the game.
You're right. So
make sure you extend that and you actually get rid of anything you're doing, and that's what the end game method does. So let's get into the good part here, the invaders game canvas view. So this class, as I said, is going to deal with all the drawing. It's going to extend the view class. A view being a class that is a UI component, and it's the base class for all widgets. It's the base class for your button widgets, for your give me some spinners, for list views, right? The view is just a base class, okay? And so that's what the canvas is here. We're taking a canvas and we're applying it to a view. So this is our own customized view here. So don't want to go through every single variable for this class. There's a lot. I've got finals here. It's always good to create finals. Finals being a variable that you declare once and you can use all the way through the class. That way you don't have to, let's say, for example, how often the aliens. So you can see up at the top here, avatar frequency is how often the aliens actually come down the screen. You want to set that once across the entire class. Because otherwise, if you're like, hey, I want the aliens to come more often, you're going to have to go through, maybe you have 20 places in your class where you have to use that value. So make sure you declare your finals there. Actually, I didn't even declare the final, but you could. We'll do that later. Let's see here. We have other things here. I'll talk about these array lists. I create array lists here, an array list being, a wrapped kind of type for arrays. Okay, an array list just has extra methods that allow you to modify an array, delete elements, replace elements. And so I have 4 arrays here. One of them's for the lasers. So every time you shoot a laser, it puts it into this array list so that I can keep track of them, right? These array lists are just for tracking different elements. I have a list of the avatars, so all the current aliens on screen. I have a list of the destroyed aliens. That's going to be used later so I can make them disappear slowly. And I have a list of all the bombs on screen. The bombs don't come very often because obviously they're a pretty powerful power-up. What they do is they destroy all the aliens on the screen.
That was my idea.
I don't know. Everything's your idea.
No. It was good that we put small little things like that. That helps the game.
So I want to take a quick second without even looking at the code. The way you want your game to work, besides all these building blocks of making these classes, is there's 2 important things to a 2D game. You need to extend the onDraw method. This is where you do all your drawing on your canvas. That one you're going to be dealing with a lot. So every time it goes through a refresh on the screen, it needs to draw something new. So you're going to have to deal with that a lot. I'll show you it. And you also need a thread that's constantly updating the screen. So let's go all the way down to my thread here for my canvas view. A thread being something that you can run in the background. So I have this method here, or sorry, this thread here called update UI.